It's for somebody special. Yeah.
Hey beautiful, welcome to Dr. Sarah's Café. This is your weekly refill where we take our time to savor the flavor of the week, which is a unique specialty blend of astrology, tarot, oracle, creativity, poetry, and a whole lot of intuition. If you're new here, welcome. I hope you stick around and subscribe. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for being here with me again for another weekly refill. This week, our flavor is propeller. Propeller, P-R-O-P-E-L-L-E-R, propeller. And so we think about propellers usually, if you're like me, the little fan things on the back of a boat or the fan thing on the front of an airplane, right? And you turn the propeller and the airplane can fly. And it might feel like we have a propeller attached to us, and we're going to explain why, beginning with the astrology. First, on the 18th, we have the sun moving into the sign of Pisces. Happy birthday to the Pisces. If you're watching and you're a Pisces sun, if this is your birthday season, please let me know in the comments so I can wish you a happy birthday. Also, the 20th, we have Mercury in Pisces squaring Jupiter in Gemini. Okay, and then on the 23rd, we have Mercury in Pisces trining Mars in Cancer. And then on that same day, we have Mars in Cancer turning direct. So we have a whole lot of Pisces energy in the month of February in general. Next week, we'll have even more. But what really is driving or propelling this propeller flavor of the week is that Mars turning direct. If you didn't notice, I have it highlighted in yellow, drawing attention to it. So that's really the crux of what I'm feeling with this propeller, because Mars is like the energy of being, and Mars retrograde is like the energy of being wound up. If you think about one of those wind up toys, Mars retrograde is like winding the toy. And then when Mars goes direct, it's like letting go of the winding mechanism. And then the toy just shoots forward, right? Or it just starts to spin or turn or walk or dance or whatever it is that it does once it's unwound. And so maybe for us in some area of our lives, depending on your personal birth chart, we might have felt like we were being wound up a little bit, right? Like we want to move, we want to go forward. And if you've ever tried to wind one of those toys, it can be difficult because every time you reposition your finger to make another turn of the rotation, the toy starts to move and you have to like go back, it's a whole thing, right? And so Mars retrograde could have felt like that. Like we were trying to just go, we were trying to just break free and make progress, move ahead on something. And it felt like we kept experiencing more resistance, more pushback, more delays, more waiting, okay? But using that analogy of the wind-up toy or the analogy of a resistance band, for example, all of that resistance, all of that pushback, all of that friction and delay is almost like building up potential energy as Mars is going retrograde. It's just building up that energy, holding it, storing it for the right moment. And then when it stations direct and it's ready to move forward, it's like all of that tension is released. And you spring forward, right? Or you shoot forward like the little toy car or the athlete who's running with a resistance band around their waist. And they're like pushing and pushing and pushing. They're not going anywhere. And all of a sudden that resistance band is cut or snapped. And it's like they're propelled forward. They fly forward because pushing against that resistance and then suddenly, instantaneously having that resistance moved is akin to or similar to being propelled forward, okay? It has a similar sensation. I'm really excited about Sun in Pisces, one, because we're getting closer to the astrological new year, right? And so we're entering what is the astrological December, right? The last month of the astrological new year. And so I think Pisces energy is perfect for that because it's a great time to be reflective, a great time to sort of retreat, and just like you would at the end of the year and sort of review on the lessons, the things that have been coming up for you. Think about what seeds you want to plant when springtime comes, right? We're getting closer to spring as well in the northern hemisphere, and I'm excited for warmer weather as soon as possible. But Pisces also being that sort of spiritual ascension, right? And so you've you've lived a whole year, or like in the cycle, you've gone through the whole cycle, and the experiences you've had from Aries now to Pisces is ideally helped you to elevate spiritually, right? Has attributed to or contributed to your spiritual ascension, your spiritual growth and evolution, right? Pisces is a very, very deeply spiritual sign. And so the sun being the spotlight, the focus for the collective, wherever it is going to draw attention to spiritual things. It's going to draw attention to our own personal spirituality. And then Mercury in Pisces squaring Jupiter and Gemini. I remember, you might not remember because I have a lot of new subscribers. Hey y'all, since I made the Jupiter retrograde video where I talked about Jupiter and Mercury's opposition. So Mercury and Jupiter are making another very interesting conversation and mutual reception once again. So I'll link to it in the description box below if you want to watch the Jupiter retrograde video where I talked about Mercury and Jupiter's mutual opposition, a mutual reception while being in opposition. This time they're in mutual reception while being in a square to each other. And mutual reception, for those who don't know, is when one planet is in the sign that rules the other planet. And that planet is also in the sign that rules the other planet. So it's like wife swap or house swap or spouse swap, right? Like, so I'm going to go to your house and you're going to come to my house. That's what Mercury and Jupiter are doing, because Jupiter rules Pisces, where Mercury is, and Mercury rules Gemini, where Jupiter is. Okay. Hopefully that was clear and made sense. So what I was explaining in the Jupiter retrograde video is that this square, just like the opposition at the, back in November, December, is a tense aspect. It's a friction, sometimes difficult conversation that planets can have. Yet I think the way I read mutual receptions is that I am arguing with you, but because I'm in your house, it's helping me to practice decorum. It's helping me to try to see things from your perspective. It's giving me an inside look at the way you live and how you move and how you think and operate, right? So Mercury, because it's exploring Jupiter's territory, might have a better understanding in this difficult conversation with Jupiter, and vice versa, because Jupiter is deep into Mercury territory, being in Gemini for all this time. It's hopefully learned some things about how Mercury thinks, about how Mercury likes to move through the world. And that greater understanding, walking a mile in each other's shoes, walking many miles in each other's shoes, hopefully helps them work well together in this square, so that they can use that dynamic tension, so they can use that dynamic friction to move something forward, to propel something forward, right? And I'm going to talk about this in the Pisces new moon video. But a square is like when two planets are making a 90-degree angle in the sky, right? So if you have Mercury here, Jupiter here, they make a 90-degree triangle, right? What kind of triangle is that called? It's not an isosceles. Is it a right triangle? Is that what it's called? I'm thinking back to my geometry days. Let me know in the comments. But that 90-degree angle creates torque, right? So if you have something going this way and another thing T-bones it, it'll spin it. And so that 90-degree angle, it's like turning the wheel, right? And that is also how propellers move. Propellers create this motion. They create this circular motion, and that requires torque. And so a square is not always bad if it can be channeled and harnessed for power. And if that power can be used wisely and effectively and efficiently for good. Okay. Like the video if you're still following me. If you're still following along with what I'm saying. If it's confusing, let me know in the comments and I'll try to clear things up, okay? February 23rd, Mercury in Pisces trines Mars in Cancer. And I love this because it's the same day that Mars turns direct. And so Mars making a trine to Mercury the day it goes direct. Best case scenario is that we get clarity around where we're headed. we are able to better communicate the direction that we now want to go forward with. So we not only have the power and the propeller, the propulsion forward, but we have details, we have more information, we have more insights, we have more clarity. We're able to process information more effectively, right? Now, Mercury does not do the best in Pisces, and so it's a little debilitated. However, it's still making a helpful aspect to Mars in that regard, okay? So let me know in the comments how the astrology plays out for you, if any of this resonates as you're watching the video, or if anything plays out in a similar fashion as the way I'm describing it when it happens. Because my astrology conversations are not predictions necessarily. They are sort of like painting a picture, right? If the stars and the planets are a palette, then I take that palette of energies and I try to paint a picture for us using that palette, okay? And I know I'm steeped in analogies. So for the Oracle Tea Leave message, we are using the Secrets of the Ancestors Oracle deck by Abiola Abrams. We have the number 24 and Creature of Fire. And the tagline, the log line for Creature of Fire is choose freedom. Now, Creature of Fire corresponds to the Knight of Wands in Tarot. It's very, very Martian, very Mars-like. First of all, Mars is the fiery planet. It is the planet of action, freedom, aggression, assertiveness, war, battle, right? And so that passionate force of that Knight of Wands, forward momentum, that Creature of Fire, right? Even the idea of a creature of fire, it's more like primal. And Mars is a very primal planet. It is like that drive, that gut instinct, that inward propulsion, right? Being propelled by your gut instinct. And fire, of course, being sort of that rage and that passion and that vigor and that vitality. And so this is very empowering. This is, I make stuff happen. I make moves and I take charge of my life and I charge forward, right? Again, trine to Mercury, I charge forward with insight, with clarity, with the right information and the right details, okay? So again, I'm thinking that trine to Mercury will help us have our head on straight with this forward propulsion that is asking us to take action and be physical and even be in our bodies, okay? And then we have our tarot cards. It surprised me when these came out for the week, but we have the King of Wands and the King of Pentacles. So mostly the King of Wands makes sense because it's also fire, right? And so again, related to Mars, related to that idea of taking action and being confident, okay? So when you have a strong Mars, you tend to be a very confident person, and Mars being a very masculine planet. So it makes sense that kings are coming out. On a more practical level, the King of Wands, again, being that confidence to act, but acting in a mature way. So it's a level up from the Creature of Fire. It's actually 2 levels up from the Creature of Fire, where it is just as passionate, just as gung-ho about certain things, and just as motivated, but it has maturity behind it, right? It's usually an older, more mature type of ambition and vitality and motivation. And the King of Pentacles is able to make it practical, make it grounded, make it have purpose, make it have substance, make it have longevity. So we're not just out here acting and running amok and being excited and having direction and drive. The King of Pentacles can help us sustain it, can help us organize it, can help us make it profitable, right? Can give it more purpose and sustainability. And this week's Pastry and Poetry, I'm going back to one of my all-time favorites, Gwendolyn Brooks. This is something I've said. This is a poem, a poet and a poem that I've introduced to the weekly refills in the past, last year in the beginning. But it's from the book, the novella Maud Martha, which technically is not a poem. It's like a poetic novel or a poetic series of vignettes, right? But it's so meaningful to me. It just felt right. I am the kind of person, I return to literature over and over again. I will return to the same essay, the same poem, the same book over and over and over again, just because it is so meaningful and so resonant with me. Okay. So one of those poets is Gwendolyn Brooks, but specifically her novel, Maud Martha. And Gwendolyn Brooks is a Gemini, fellow Gemini, June 7th, the day after my birthday. However, she's several years ahead of me, born in 1917. And this is from the last chapter in the book, Maud Martha. And it reminds me of this propeller energy of Mars stationing direct. So Mars retrograde is like being cooped up in the house and having cabin fever. And Mars turning direct is like being able to open the door and run outside after being cooped up and not being able to go out for a really long time. So this reminded me of that energy. So I want to share it with you all. And it was such a beautiful day. And it made her whisper, what am I to do with all this life? And exactly what was one to do with it all? At a moment like this, one was ready for anything, was not afraid of anything. So this energy, what I'm wishing for all of us, is that sense with Mars stationing direct of finally having our energy back, finally having that source, being able to tap that source of physical vitality, emotional vitality, and passion, and assertiveness, and drive, okay, and ambition. And it could be ambition to bake a cake, right? It doesn't have to mean like career ambition or you want to run for political office. It could be ambition to make a beautiful garden, ambition to clean your house, or to take better care of yourself, to take more naps, right? Anything you can be ambitious about. But Mars is your ability to say, I can do this. I can do this. Yeah. And the lines at a moment like this, one was ready for anything. One was not afraid of anything. Mars is that courage. Mars is that warrior spirit that says, I am ready to face the day. I am ready to meet the day. I'm ready to meet my life. I'm ready to meet the occasion that is before me, right? That is my wish for us. Speaking of my wishes for us, the takeaway is a reflection this time around. And my questions for you: what has this Mars retrograde period helped you build the strength, the courage, and the passion to move ahead with? Okay, so again, thinking about Mars retrograde winding up that toy, some area of your life might have felt like, you were winding it up. It's building that strength, building that courage, building that passion. And now you're like, you know what? I have a sufficient store of courage and passion and motivation to now move ahead. Okay. And also, what resistance bands have been cut? What resistance bands have been cut away from your life, away from this situation, this relationship, this endeavor, this project, this job, this health routine, this emotion, this memory, right? Like some of us during this Mars retrograde period have been training with resistance bands on, and it's been hard, it's been difficult, and you might feel, like those resistance bands have been cut and like you're just flying free. It's like whoosh. What were those resistance bands? Was it difficult conversations? Was it deeper study? Was it more self-care? Was it more rest? Was it more reflection, more journal, more meditation? Was it more therapy or counseling? Was it more work? Was it more reps? Was it more knowledge and information, right? Like there was something that you had to like maybe wade through a little bit, and now you're out of it and it's like smooth sailing. Okay. Hopefully. It might take a while for Mars to pick up speed again. We'll see ultimately. And then my last question is, how will you move differently now? How will you move differently now? My dears, if you've made it this far in the video and you aren't subscribed, you might want to go ahead and do that. Also, if you haven't hit the like button yet, please do, because I'd like more people to be able to engage in these conversations around spiritual exploration. And I hope to see you in another video. Take care. Much love.